we have special guests. So we have special guests. My friends Jason and Keith are here with me. We're going to bring them on in just a second. Thanks for tuning in. If you're here, if you found me because of them, thank you. Feel free to drop a comment or a question or anything like that, and we will try to respond and reply to questions as fast as we can. And without any further ado, let me bring on our special guests, Jason and Keith. How's it going, guys?
What's up, Max?
Thanks for having us on, Max.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. It's an honor to have you on. Jason, we've known each other for a number of years now, back from when we were in the Navy together. And Keith, we only just met a few moments ago, and it's really nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us here today.
Feels like a lifetime already, Max.
Right. It always does when you're talking to a fellow service member, especially same branch, especially even more when they're friends of a friend.
Same cloth.
Yeah, and I do want everybody to know that we are broadcasting over 3 time zones right now.
That's right. We are.
It's work.
Not only 3 time zones, but intercontinental. It is the miracle of modern technology. It is totally crazy, totally insane.
Beautiful thing.
So for people who are watching, Keith, or listening on the podcast in the future, Keith, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. 30 years old. Pretty standard, right? Joined the military at 18 years old, right out of high school. Joined to be a SEAL. It's what I wanted to do probably since I was like 14 or 15 years old. Went right in. That was right in the implementation of the pre-buds, right to buds era, as Jason knows. Went in, had absolutely no idea what I was doing and had no right being there. But I did pretty damn well. I got all the way into Hell Week, and then I quit. A big thing that we're going to talk about is that quitting and the failure and how I kind of responded to that. Ended up staying in the Navy, much like Jason. Ended up doing actually some cool stuff. I was out in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was with VPU-2, which was a intelligence squadron, signals intelligence. Ended up working for some cool 3-letter agencies within the special operations community. Shout out to all my VPU-2 guys. And loved it. Ended up doing some cool stuff, but I knew it's not what I wanted to do forever. Ended up getting out of the military 2015 with absolutely no idea what I was going to do with my life. Since then, kind of been doing the whole entrepreneurial thing, trying different things. As of now, in 2020, it's been about 5 years. I find myself in school full-time, studying finance, heavily into equities investing, getting into real estate investing. CrossFit level 1 coach. I coach multiple classes a week. I have many clients. I'm very intertwined. I'm in New Jersey right now in the fitness and martial arts kind of world. I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. I don't really know what else to talk about. I don't like talking about myself too much.
All right. Well, so you're very active and you had a cool career in the Navy, which we'll get into all that.
Absolutely.
I feel like people know you a little bit now, who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't need to talk too much about me. You'll hear a lot about me. By the end, you're going to be like, man, this dude does not shut up about himself.
All right.
You should not. You love the modesty, Keith.
Yeah.
I know. That's one thing I have. Everyone knows that, man.
Jason, you want to give us a little intro on you?
Absolutely. Jason Goyanko. I was, before I went into the Navy, I was a personal trainer and triathlon coach. I did Ironman 4 times. And some friends that I'd known through my 20s were ended up becoming Navy SEALs. So the moment that I knew it was time for me to join, and what lit a fire underneath me was a friend of mine, an active duty SEAL, invited me to go to a Medal of Honor ceremony for Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So there were 3 ceremonies that day in October 2007. The first one at the White House, the second one at the Pentagon, and the last one at the Navy Memorial. So I attended the one at the Navy Memorial, and just being I sat 2 seats away from Heather Murphy, his widow, and just being surrounded by these confident men, who were part of this brotherhood. It's something that that I look back on and really, I just knew that there was something about these guys that I had to find out. And then at the conclusion of the ceremony, I was able to shake hands with Dan Murphy, and I told his Lieutenant Murphy's mom, Maureen, thank you for her son's incredible sacrifice. And she gave me a hug, and I can never forget it. So fast forward a few months later, my friend Aaron became a BUD/S instructor. I was 30, going on 31. So I'd have to get an age waiver to do this. But Aaron, knowing who I was and my history in fitness, said that he gave me a waiver, no problem. So found myself 3 months later in boot camp. Ended up going to Hell Week, and that's where Keith and I met in class 281, and I didn't make it through Hell Week. So that was a pretty tough blow, because I haven't failed at anything like that in my life. I went on to go aircrew, and was it with VP4 in Hawaii. So I saw Keith every now and then. And although it was a great tour for me in Hawaii, it's not really what I came in the Navy to do. And I really wanted to come back to the special warfare community. So I screened for EOD. I knew BUD/S, going back to BUD/S wasn't going to be an option for me. And then I found out about this really cool job flying unmanned aircraft for special warfare missions, SEALs and SWIC. And put in my application for it, screened, and made it over back to Coronado, and that's where I met Max, who was already a senior guy there, and ended up doing 5 years there. And it was really how my life came back full circle, and I really enjoyed that community. I separated from the Navy last December, so I'm almost a year now as a veteran. Currently pursuing my MBA part-time with Pepperdine Graziadino School of Business. And I'm also a civilian contractor working at Special Warfare Advanced Training Command. So Max's old job.
That's right. Sniped my old job. Well, that's cool. I'm hosting a YouTube channel now, so it all worked out. Hey, Jason, did you quit, or did you get hurt in BUD/S?
I quit. And funny thing is that the running, my legs were just crushed. Something that I was really good at, just couldn't keep up anymore. So,
well, I guess, I never went to BUD/S, but it just, I don't know what the moment is where, people realize that they're not going to make it, because nobody thinks that they're not going to make it, right? But obviously so many people do. And that's part of the temptation. Like, to me, the idea of failure is like it begs you to try, That's what I've always thought, is like, man, why are so many people failing at that? I want to try that. It's kind of like when you see people, here's a common one, the 100-second dead hang challenge at the pull-up bar at the fair or whatever, but the bar spins and you're like, I can do it, and you get up there and you can't do it, because you didn't know at the time what about that was going to be so hard. You maybe arrogantly thought you could do it, and then you went in there and you were like, well, I didn't know about this part, and this is way different than I thought it was going to be. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if I am going to make it through this, 100 seconds. And so you drop and you lose your $10, and they go on to the next person. But the idea of failing at it begs you to come and try it. At least for some personality types, that's the way it is. And it is for me. I'm sure it is for you guys and everyone who's taken the SEAL challenge. But failure is not necessarily the end, although it could be. And you guys have learned a lot through failure. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit? Maybe Keith, lead us off on what it is about failure that is such a powerful lesson if you choose to see it that way.
Absolutely. So to kind of reiterate back to what you were saying, I don't think I ever would have even joined to be a SEAL if so many people didn't quit. And I think that's the same mindset that a lot of guys have going into it, is we all wanted to serve, but we wanted to serve at the highest level. We wanted to see if we were made of what we thought we were made of, right? And it's crazy to think that like when I joined, I was 18 or 17, turning 18, not knowing anything. Whereas Jason was 30. He already kind of did a bunch of Ironmans. So many people are coming in with different mindsets of what they're about to get into, what is failure. And it's just this crazy, like massive pool of individuals that all want to test themselves at the highest level. But failure. So when I quit, I think, and I try to remember the exact moment that I quit and what I was thinking about and why it actually happened. I can kind of trace it back to one or two moments. I had a really bad day for a single day where I failed at almost every evolution in a row, and the instructors were just hounding me constantly, just telling me that I wasn't good enough and I was in the wrong place and I was in the wrong place. And I don't think in that moment of my life, I was mature enough to understand that they were just pushing me to be the best version of myself. I thought that they were actually telling me that, like, we don't want you to be a SEAL. Like, we found your weakness and you are not cut out for this. But that was about a week or two prior to when I actually quit. I quit during Hell Week in like a late night surf passage when I was freezing. I was a smaller guy in Bud, so the cold destroyed me. The running never really got to me. The only two things that ever bothered me in Buds were the cold and then running with a boat on my head, purely because I was small. I wasn't really that strong, whereas like those big bruiser guys were great with the logs and the boats. I could do everything else all day. Really wasn't an issue. I really wasn't that physically challenged during Buds, to be honest. There was never really a moment where I was like, this is too hard physically. I can't do this. For me, it was the mental torture of, kind of like Jason was saying, looking at these guys that were, I couldn't even see myself in the same realm of like their confidence, their skill level, like what they were made of. And then when they started telling me that I wasn't ready for it, I kind of believed it. And I got to a point where I had a small moment of weakness and I just said, you know what? I don't belong here. Maybe I'll try it again in a couple of years. Maybe I won't, but I need that time to think if I'm ready for it. And then as soon as I quit, within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Because I knew in that moment, the only thing in my mind was, how fast can I get back? That was such a horrible decision I just made. What did I just do? And then it's taken literally since that moment to this moment that I'm talking with you of constant introspection of what has that failure done for my life and where has it pushed me to be in my life? And if I had to kind of round it up, we're going to talk a lot more about this. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so happy that I quit in that moment. Sure, if I would have made it, I'm sure I would have learned a ton about myself. It would have been this amazing experience. I would have had a great job. I would have met awesome people. But all that stuff happened anyway. And I used failure as a positive catalyst to never allow me to fail again. And I think that everything I do now, I always have it in the back of my mind of, you know how that feels. Don't get there again.
So really quick on that is just like, because we're on the subject of Navy SEAL training and how hard it is. And we've had so many guests on the show who are SEALs, like probably more than any other group of people. We've had SEALs on the show because that's the community that I came out of, you know? And it's the Honor Foundation and the Navy SEAL community is the reason why the ScuttleButt Show exists. And it's funny to me how out of all of this, I've never heard a SEAL say anything bad about someone who quit Buds. It's only people who've never been, you know? I've never heard a SEAL go, loser quit or whatever, you know? Or they're Buds duds, you know, like in a negative way. Like you hear that, but not in like in a put down way. It's always, well, you know, they tried. That's, you know, a lot of people, most people don't try. And it's really hard because they know how hard it is and they've been through it. It's always people who are like, on the outside who've never been, who love to antagonize and trash talk. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for trying, because it takes a lot just to step up to the plate, the whole man in the arena idea, and to believe that that's what you want to go do and then try and give it your all. And then to, you know, make it into Hell Week where people quit on the first day and all that. So good on you guys. I think that it's really admirable to go do. And there's nothing wrong with not making it as long as you were in the moment, at least honest with yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that, Max. And I came to terms with it a long time ago, and I've put it past myself because I knew that I could still do a lot of great things in life, and it was a great learning experience. But they just finished the special warfare instructor qualification course that we have to take to be instructor at Advanced Training Command, and the old Master Chief Rick Nepper, who was one of our instructors in that class, Vietnam Air SEAL, who served with Bob Carey, amazing man who's a historian for the special warfare community, gave validation to all of his future BUDS instructors, to those students that don't make it. And, he said that you really got to take care of those guys because, they're still part of that 0.001%, that tested themselves. They're still very patriotic men that will go on and do good things, whether it's in the Navy or out.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm glad to hear Rick Nepper's still over there. He is world class. He is a world class dude. And a great instructor and a great historian. And at least, 4 years ago when I went through that course, he was still a world class athlete as well, making long distance swims. So, Jason, you said you came to terms with what happened, but you were older. You were much older when you went through BUDS. And by the way, I don't know if I've ever told you this because I think I was an asshole when I was at SRT. Is you had, and I think I had a reputation for being one too. You had a great attitude always from day one, like just a really positive attitude and a positive person to be around. And I probably never told you that. And I just want to tell you, it was just a pleasure working around you because you were always super upbeat, happy, excited to be doing what you were doing and putting a lot of effort into it and, trying hard and giving it your all, even though you were old as shit. So it was
so I'm going to tell you, I still tell all the new guys, and even this last class, I remember you and Jake McLeod had sat us down, the young guys, just coming into SRT and special warfare community, and you and Jake told us to, you got to earn your spot here every day. So I still pass that forward.
Yeah, it's that's good because that's and I got that off of a sign on the door. That was one of the parts of the ethos of SRT, and I think it stands true to anything you do. That's the attitude you should have: is earn your spot every day. Now you both had joined the Navy to be SEALs, and when that didn't work out, there's a really difficult transition phase, famously difficult, right? Because the Navy even instituted better programs to help people go from the end of their SEAL training back to the fleet. And I've known a ton of people who, when they come from BUDS for whatever reason, injuries or having DOR'd, they never adjust well to their other job because they kind of resent the Navy at that point. Like, this isn't what I came here to do. What was that transition like for you guys, having to course correct from the path that you knew God put you on this earth to be on, and there's no backup plan, but now you're facing that backup plan that you had never thought you would come face to face with? What was that like?
That was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through, and honestly, failing was one thing, but then, as you just said before, it's the judgment that you get from people who have never even been there, and from the regular Navy, and they hate you from day one for failing a program that you signed up for. And so having to deal with that was really a test of inner strength and being an older, mature guy, it was tough not to want to get in a fist fight or an argument every day with somebody, because I ended up in Pensacola going through aircrew school and just having to deal with a lot of immaturity and lack of lack of experience, you know, so they just, you know, people would just want to make fun of you and put you down for that. So, but luckily, a lot of the younger guys that also didn't make it, for me, they looked up to me, and they kind of, you know, they looked up to me to like, hey, what do we do now? You know, like, let's all stick together. And that's what we did. We all stuck together. And, you know, I remember, you know, being in Pensacola, I was like, hey guys, there's this North Face 50K endurance race. I'm going to sign up for it and do it over the weekend. And, you know, I ended up having, you know, 6 other guys join me for that race, you know, and we kind of found each other, and we continued, you know, this little brotherhood, you know, all the way till, you know, we parted our separate ways in different rates. So,
Keith, what about you? The days and weeks following?
I think I followed it. Obviously, Jason and I ended up in the same place in Hawaii, so I think we followed a very similar path out. There was a solid crew of us that were in the same class, or even like maybe a class before, and then our class as well, that were all didn't make it through, and we really didn't have many options. So I think we all kind of picked air crew, right, Jason? There was probably a good like.
It sounded better than anything else.
Like 6 or 8 of us that were like all just completely disheartened, wanted nothing to do with the Navy. So we're like, I guess let's choose the least of all evils, right? So air crew seemed fine. We all kind of went around the same time. I was still young and had a chip on my shoulder and thought I was cool and thought I knew everything and thought just because I was in buds that I was better than everybody else. And I got brought down to reality really quick. So it was a process. I went through a lot of growing pains those first couple of years of the Navy, from going from like an all-time high and feeling I was on top of the world and I was going into this cool stuff, to all of a sudden being at the bottom of the barrel, finding myself in air crew school and just getting yelled at again. I was like, I just went through all this. Like it was a tough transition. But then I kind of had just like a moment where I was like, you know what, this is where I am. Let me make the best of it. Ended up going to Hawaii, doing some cool stuff. Again, I went with about 2 or 3 guys that I was in class with. We all kind of went out there. So I had a solid group of guys that I knew. We all kind of understood the process and we were together. So that helped a lot. If I had to go through that alone completely by myself somewhere else, I think it would have been significantly harder. But that just shows the importance of having a brotherhood and having guys that understand you and what you went through. That could really make any situation a lot easier. So eventually I got to a point where I was pretty content with my life. I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to go back. So I always kind of held myself to that higher standard and always kind of talked about it in a positive way until I eventually got out. And then I really tried to leave it behind. But during the Navy, I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I was going to go back and try it again. I'm sure most guys that get out of buds do, even in the smallest sense of the word. So that's really kind of how it went for me. Extremely difficult in the beginning, and then it gradually got a little bit better. And it really helped having guys around me that had to go through the same process for sure.
What about, okay, tough question time. What about like telling your friends and family that you were done in training?
Well, I think it wasn't, this is me being completely honest. I probably told about 3 or 4 different stories to multiple people about what happened. I was extremely embarrassed. It was one of those things that I told everyone before going in that I was going to do. I didn't have the confidence and the integrity of myself to understand what happened in that moment and tell everyone, hey, I wasn't good enough. I quit. So I made up stories, said I hurt my knee during Hell Week, or yeah, you know, I was sick actually. I had like dysentery, but pretty much the whole class did. So woe is me, right? We were all sick. So I would tell people, you know, I had dysentery and I was really sick and I was, you know, I just couldn't do it. I was medically dropped. I probably told people at some point. Looking back, man, it just like hurts my soul that I couldn't accept the fact that I just wasn't good enough. So to answer that question, I handled that horribly. I was dishonest. I didn't do it correctly. I was ashamed that I told people that were relying on me, and they weren't, right? But you have this own story of how cool you are. It built it up in your own head, and it's really hard to get rid of that when you find out you're not good enough. So as I'm getting older and looking back, and this is a long time ago, I settled that fact. I made sure I made it right. So I accepted the fact that I didn't make it. I quit, and I let everyone know, like, hey, I just wasn't good enough. And now I'm at that point where I've 100% accepted it. And even like saying it here in a public forum feels great. I have no problem saying it. I just wasn't good enough. I'm older, I'm mature, I've accepted that. Some guys make it, some guys don't. Some of the best guys in my life that I know are guys that did not make it. And that's okay. We're all still here. We're crushing it.
Yeah.
I love what you just said there, Keith, because that is so true. I think just about every guy that doesn't make it says that they were medically dropped.
Yeah, I know. You got to stop that, guys. Punch studs. Just stop. Admit it.
You know, and I definitely felt the same way. That's the first thing people want to know. You know, you didn't make it. Oh, did you ring out? You know, like, and it hurts like at the time to admit that. But yeah, I've completely okay with it now because I know that there's a reason that only 22% of the guys that go through it make it. It's, you know, it's as tough as advertised. So, but nothing but respect for the people that did make it, you know, as well as for the guys that tried, you know, even if you quit day one of surf torture. So
time makes telling the truth about things way easier. And I think part of it is because I recently, like in the last couple of years, I'm 35 and some change. And in the last couple of years, I've kind of really realized it took this long to really realize that you should always just tell the truth, you know, like, and I approach it like this. This is my whole life philosophy on it is you should make decisions like you can't lie. Like when you make a decision, think if this ever comes up, I have to tell the truth about it and then make the decision that you're faced with, you know? And I think that one idea will guide a lot of decisions really well. And then when you start telling the truth, you realize that it's not that bad. Nothing bad really happens after you tell the truth. Like it's a lot better than getting caught in a lie at the very least. So I think that more openly talking about our failures like that and things that we did that we're not proud of, instead of trying to cover them up with, I just got too busy today to clean the house. You know, when my wife comes home from work and I didn't do my husbandly duties, just, hey, yeah, it didn't happen today. I was doing other stuff. I could have done it. It didn't happen. It's not only it results in a better conclusion, but it's more like what everyone's dealing with. And that is a way better for all of our mental health if we all realize we're kind of going through the same stuff, as opposed to constantly going, no, it wasn't really that. It wasn't really, on me. It was something else happened. Oh yeah, me too. It wasn't my fault. And then we're all just like living in imagination land with one another, having the wrong impression of how other people's lives are. So not only are we not being honest, and then we have to live with being dishonest, but we're all putting up this, fake thing that makes other people feel worse about themselves. So we hurt ourselves and we hurt other people in the process by not being totally honest about what our failures are. And I think that that's something I've realized as my years have gone on, is to just tell the truth, especially doing this podcast. In the community that we're in of veterans, we're all going through similar stuff at some point, especially,
Absolutely.
Tribe, community, failure, identity, family, deployments, depression, whatever it is. It's universal among service members, even across generations. We've talked to World War II Pearl Harbor survivors on the show, and it seems like you can talk, if you talk openly and honestly, you start to realize that you're all feeling very similar about a lot of stuff, which you only find out when you start telling the total truth, the total
Absolutely.
Transparent truth about things.
Yeah,
I think that's
owning
I
it.
love that. Go ahead, Jason.
Just owning it and having the integrity that was built into us, during military careers, just to own it. And, everything's going to be all right. Life
Yeah.
will go on.
Yeah.
I love what you were saying, Max. I think that's one thing within the veteran community that, if anything you get from me, that's what I want to bring out. Like, you're still cool if you take off that stoic armor. You're allowed to be open and honest, and like we're still men. Like, you're allowed to be emotional. You're allowed to be all that stuff. Like, you're okay. You don't have to lie about things to protect that toughness and that coolness. Like, just be honest. Like, you're going to help more people in your life if you're raw and open to it, and you're able to like tell your boys, like, dude, I love you, man. Like, let's hang out soon. Instead of being like, yeah, it's all good. I'm like, we're cool. Everything's fine. I have no problems. I compartmentalize everything. Like, no, we don't. We're all veterans. We all have issues. Like, we need to talk about it a little bit. And I think that realizing it's okay to tell the truth all the time and be open with yourself is the initial step to like repairing this pandemic that's going through the veteran community, of these depression and anxiety and mental illness and these awful ways to deal with your problems. I think the first step is guys like you, like us three, just meeting up and saying like, dude, it's okay. Like, reach out to your boys, be honest, let them know what's going on. That's obviously a widespread version of kind of what you were saying, but I think it'll kind of branch off nicely and into something that we want to talk about, which is like mental health and stuff in the veteran community, especially veterans that are transitioning from these high output, high energy, constant chaos type environments, transitioning back into a civilian life where now they're alone with their own thoughts. And it's something that I had to go through as well. And even just like having guys like Jason or a couple other my veteran buddies to be open and honest with has helped significantly when I'm in those times where I'm like, man, like, who am I anymore? What's my purpose? What's all this stuff that I have to do? And I think it's just, to reiterate back, the first step is having that introspection and being able to look inside yourself and saying like, what's the truth? What am I actually thinking about? Like, I can't cover all this stuff up anymore, because at some point in my life, it's all going to come back out, and then I have to deal with it. And it's better to deal with it early with a team of guys than by yourself in your lowest moments.
Yeah. I think I'd like to repeat that it's all going to come out, but how it comes out is up to you, until you lose control and it's not up to you, the best thing to do is to, let out what you're feeling at the time before it builds up into like this uncontrollable event, One big thing that you kind of talked about is, we were talking about tribe and community and having someone to talk about it with, and peer groups. When you guys left Buds, which by the way, I think is like the perfect, like metaphor for service is Buds, because you go from like this extremely high intensity, tight environment where you're surrounded by the same people going through the same kind of hard stuff. And then you immediately leave that and you have no peers around you, which is exactly the same as getting out of the military for anybody it translates perfectly to any veteran, because you leave that community and there's no immediate peers around you who you can kind of talk to, who understand, who can empathize, or who you feel are like trusted mentors or confidants. So what was that like when you go back, you hit the fleet and you're like, who do I talk to? Who was in your tribe? Who did you feel like you could reach out to? You had each other, but when you were in like outside of that, who was around that understood you?
I mean, I think we were both fortunate because there were so many guys going through Buds at that time. So there were also a lot of guys who didn't make it. And, every step of the way, I think this is probably the same for Keith, is that because we even ended up in Hawaii together, even albeit not the same command, but we still saw each other. And, I still knew Keith was out there for me to reach out to if I needed a buddy to talk to. So that we were very lucky in that respect. I know some of the classes are smaller coming out of these days. They probably don't have that. So that is a real thing, and it's difficult. Sebastian Hunger in his book Tribe, he talks about that sense of loss of tribe extensively, and that I think for veterans leaving the military, the best thing they can do is what the Honor Foundation preaches, is continue to serve and find ways that you can serve, even though you're not in a uniform, with a flag on your shoulder. There's ways to serve the community and connect with other veterans, and to repurpose yourself, and find the next mission.
Did you guys, so what about when you guys were out in the fleet in Hawaii? I wonder, were there times when you guys would meet up and be like, yo, these people don't get it. Like, these are not our type of people. We got to get out of here or do something, because this is not it. These are not our type of people. We got each other, but nobody else.
Absolutely. I think 90% of my military service was spent in a gym. So I escaped to places where I felt myself. Once I kind of what Jason was saying, like, I didn't have a crazy hard transition from that in general, because I was surrounded by a couple guys that were extremely high performing, and we were really stuck together. We lived together, we worked together, and we always pushed ourselves to be better in every single fashion. I guess our kind of like way to get all that angst out was we just trained like crazy, like hard. Like, we all had the mindset of like, all right, we're still like super athletes. We're still top performers. We need to treat ourselves like that. And so we trained constantly. We're lifting constantly, always trying to outdo each other, running all over the place. We were surfing out in Hawaii. So it was cool. Like, it wasn't that bad of a transition from once I got to Hawaii, I was pretty okay. The transition from Buds and again going through all those like A schools and that was really bad. That was a culture shock. I was like, wow, I'm not meant to be in this type of environment. Thankfully, it got better, and I'm sure for Jason it did as well when he joined like the UAV stuff. The squadron I was in, we still dealt within the Naval Special Warfare. So everywhere I was deployed or had detachment to, I was always in the special operations area. I was always in those type of gyms with the DevGru guys and everything. So I always felt like, okay, I'm still in an environment that can produce high productivity. I'm still in that type of environment that makes me feel like I have a purpose and I'm doing something. So I didn't struggle with that really until I got out, and then I had no one. That was my hard part, and we'll talk about that a little bit later if Jason doesn't have anything else about his military time.
No, I agree with Keith. We just continue to work out and find hard things.
Yeah.
I found out about this paddleboard race from Molokai to Oahu. It's 32 miles through the Kaiwi Channel, which is the deepest, one of the toughest channels in the Pacific Ocean. And I decided to take that on. It was things like that to continue to, just like the burpee mile, just to continue to test yourself and challenge yourself and find those things to, it seemed like the only way to make it feel a little bit better, and try to build yourself back up into what you were. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain personality type, not everybody in the military has it. But if you do, you definitely need that. You crave that challenge in your life. And after you leave the military, it's extremely difficult to find it again, especially when you're not around people who are like that. And I think that's the craziest thing is I didn't realize there were so many people out there who weren't like me, I like where I kind of am alone in a room. Like, there's no personality types that I am matching with. Nobody here that would be like my friend, like that I would seek out and like you're my friend, like we get along, we're the same type person. We can go do things together. It's actually rare, even though you see it a lot in the military. If you have found yourself, in the right community, you don't realize that even though it seems like everyone is like this, actually like no one's like that. Almost no one's like that. You just happen to all find each other because you ended up in the same place, because that's the logical place you would end up if you're like that. But when you get out, you're like, I'm alone in the world. Yes. I'm missing something big in my life that I didn't even know I had, maybe. And And I don't know, Keith, I know you had a story about this. I don't know if this is a good relevant time to kind of get into it. What do you think?
I think it's perfect. Actually, it's a great transition into it. The feeling of being alone and not having anyone that, kind of how we were saying in the beginning, is cut from your same cloth. That's the tough part, because life's at some point, and I could say this with confidence, at some point, every transitioning veteran is going to go through a moment where things get dark. It's going to happen, because you're going from something that's structured to something that is unstructured, and that introduction of chaos in your life is going to make you kind of second guess everything. I had a very, and I'll get into the story now, I had a very close group of guys that I served with. We all went through buds together. We all didn't make it. One of them ended up in Hawaii with me. The other two ended up in Washington State. Really close-knit group of guys. I'll just say so I'm Keith. Then there was Rob, Steve, and Tim. All right, 4 of us. We were in a group chat together. We all joined. We were in boot camp together. We all got out at the same time. We all got out March 9th, 2015. From that day, we had a group chat. We talked all the time. We all kind of went through our own paths of life, just talking, like, again, having that tribe of guys to say, like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, what do we do? Where do we go? We're all starting school. We're all doing the GI Bill. We're all complaining about being in a class with these 18-year-old kids that think they know life, and talking about all that stuff. And me as a mid-20s guy, just got out of the military, served at multiple deployments. You just have to kind of shut up and just say, like, okay, I'm here to get a degree. I'm here to get my school done. The GI Bill is a great gig. They pay you money. They let you go to school. Still doing that right now. So we just had kind of each other to bounce bullshit off of. But we never really got together. It was kind of surface level, like in our group chat, we all missed each other. We're all like, hey, we need to hang out. We need to get together. Eventually, probably, 2020? About 3 years after that, my buddy Tim, one of the smartest guys I've ever known. I always his claim to fame is the only guy to ever beat me at chess. I've been playing chess since I was a little kid. He's the only guy to ever beat me. So immediately I was like, man, this dude's, he's smart. He's got it going on. He went to the University of Denver, right? Yeah, that's what it's called, University of Denver. Graduated as top of his class, #1 out of the entire school, and got a full ride to pharmacy school, basically medical school, full ride. They said, all right, you got #1, like, you're going, we're paying for everything. He was crushing it. We would always talk about school, because I was in school. I'm a terrible student, by the way. I really try hard, but it was so easy for him. Straight A's, 4.0, physics, calculus, all that good stuff. And I was struggling a bit. So he would always give me a call. He was kind of the guy that I'd be like bouncing my ideas off of, because I knew he was just a guy that kind of thought well, used his brain. Finally, when he graduated, he invited myself, Rob, and Steve out there. We all went out. We had a great weekend. We partied. It was amazing seeing all my friends. I finally felt like I got my buddies back. We were drinking, having a great time. And I remember a conversation I had with Tim. And I was like, man, like, you're at the top of the world right now, man. What does it feel? How do you feel? And I remember him saying, like, it feels really good. Like, it feels really good. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, I love seeing my friends succeed. So when he was doing well, I was like, man, this is great. I finally got out to see you guys. I can't wait to do this again. This is amazing. Long story short, I leave. It's about Monday. So we spent the whole weekend together. I leave Monday. Rob leaves the same day as me. Steve leaves the day after. Steve gives me a call and says, hey, Tim just shot himself in the head. Tim just killed himself. So the guy that seemingly had it all together, was crushing it at life, graduated the top of his class, the day after all of his friends left, committed suicide. That moment, like, up until then, I was tough. I was stoic. I was able to compartmentalize everything. I didn't fear death. I didn't care about anyone that died that signed up, because I was like, they signed up for it. It comes with the territory. Seeing that crushed me. It threw a wrench in everything I believed to be true. And I had almost like a darkness of the soul. They kind of talk about that, the dark night of the soul, where just all of a sudden, like everything comes to fruition. Everything, and this isn't even, I'm not even exaggerating here. Everything in my life that I previously had put somewhere came out. And I started having these like intense stress dreams. Everything started going crazy. I started like, I could not get my brain off thinking about every single interaction we had the entire weekend. Of how did I not pick up on this? I would talk to all my friends. They felt the same way. It just made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And it's just something that I think is so common in the veteran community, to be so good at hiding that you're destroyed and there's something really going wrong, but you have to put up this armor and not show anyone, because that is the idea that's been reiterated into our brains for so long, that as when you get to that point where you're in your deepest, darkest moments and you're in despair and you can't even reach out to the guys that are closest to you and say, hey, listen, like, I'm thinking about killing myself. I am so fucked up. I need help. There's something wrong with the culture that we have bred as veterans to not be okay with that. I'm at the point now where I have no problem like telling all my friends, like, you better fucking call me. If you're sad at all, I don't care. Talk to me. You could be crying. I'll never look down on you. We need to have these discussions, because I can't physically handle going through that again and seeing that happen to another one of my friends. It absolutely destroyed the entire group and that tight-knit like understanding of veterans and everything that I believe to be true. And even right now, like just thinking about it, it messes me up so much. And I've gotten to the point now where I've spoken enough to my friends that have gotten through it to kind of rationalize it. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent to kind of, I think that we have a little bit gotten to the center of it. And I think that getting to this point can help a lot of other people. I think the problem with Tim is that he was always so high performing that anything he did never mattered. Failing at Buds was a huge blow to Tim. When he got out, he tried to make up for that failure by crushing it as hard as he possibly could in his next endeavor, which was school, right? He got to the point where, and I've had this happen in my life as well, where he just kept saying to himself, all right, once I get number one in my class, once I get school, I'll feel better. I'll start feeling happy again. I'll feel like I have a purpose. When he finally got to that point, and then he realized that I'm still empty, this didn't fill that void that I was trying to fill. And then he realized that now I have to start over again during pharmacy school, during medical school, and I'm going to get all the way to the end of that again, and it's not going to fill that void that I'm missing. I think he just got to the point where he realized and looked around and said, I'm not happy with what I'm doing in my life. I don't have any close-knit friends around that are part of my tribe to like tell about this. And he got to the point where he just felt so isolated and alone that the happiness of the weekend we spent together, as soon as we left and he felt that deep despair again and that isolated feeling, he got to that point where he was just like, that's it. You know, I can't do this alone anymore. And it's just unfortunate. We need to get to a point as veterans where we can't always try to fill that void. And especially guys that failed, of that failure, you need to be okay with the small things in life that are important and not always trying to fill that gap of your failure. And that's something I had to come to terms with during these past couple of years, and especially since it happened with Tim, because I saw a lot of myself in Tim, and I said, damn, if Tim felt like that, I'm not stronger than him. Like, what? This could happen to me as well. And it's just that thought that constantly is inside of me that's like, we can't let this happen to any other guys. We need to start opening up and getting this community back together and talking about the shit that's really going on. And this shit's going on with a lot of veterans, because I have a lot of veterans within my community, especially guys in school. There's even a couple bud studs that I go to school with out of the blue randomly that all have these same types of mindsets. And I can see it in their eyes that this dude is not okay. And I want to get to the point where we can openly talk about this, bring in these guys that have this tough stoic exterior and say, dude, open up. Like, let's get this shit together and let's stop this crisis that's going on.
Jason, you got anything on that you'd like to
I
add?
knew Tim as well. So Tim was also, he was in our Buzz class, and then Tim was also in Pensacola with us at Aircrew School. So yeah, I mean, the same sentiment as Keith. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. When I had heard about it, it was, I wasn't as close to Tim as Keith was, but still devastating. And, the question is just why? Like, I heard he was crushing it, in school, and, it seemed like he was on the right trajectory, and that he had turned failure into a positive, and, was proud of him for that. But that was a tough blow. And I think, Keith and I are both big proponents of stoicism and, being calm when there's chaos all around you. But there comes a point where, I mean, especially as men, I think women are able to do this easier than men, is that we need to be able to take off this stoic armor and talk about, some of these dark things that are going through our minds that we're dealing with inside.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Keith, and for adding on to that, Jason. I know that's not easy to talk about. And honestly, I don't even know what to say because, that's your friend that you lost, it's really tragic. I just hope that people listening to that story realize that, unfortunately, it's a common one, right? And I think that's why you were able to get to the realization that you eventually came to, Keith, because it makes sense, right? Like, eventually you realize that the truth usually totally makes sense, and that makes sense. And I've been there too. Like, you realize, and I've kind of worked it out a little bit through this show. You realize that there won't be another time in your life that compares to your time in the military, as far as the bonds that you make with people, the experiences you get to have. You're a young man or woman in the prime of your life, traveling around the world, doing crazy stuff with the craziest, most badass people that you're ever going to know, all of you at the same time getting to do this. The idea, I mean, just thinking about the experiences I've had gives me the chills, like how great it almost makes me want to cry thinking about how great it was, and our old boss, I won't say his name, Jason, but our old boss at SRT, when I was getting out of the Navy, he was looking at retirement in a year or so. And he, not Jim, but our other boss that we had there, what came in one day, and I used to go to work really early in the morning at like 4 a.m. Because I loved getting up early in the morning. I still do. I love getting up early in the morning, and I would get there and I would start getting stuff done early and work out, and then I'd be ahead of the day. Anyway, he came in one day. He also came in pretty early, and he knew I was getting out. And he said, "Do you ever think you're gonna get to work with another group of people as good as this group of people?" And I said, "I'm sure I won't. I'm sure I won't. And I've been thinking about it a lot, and that's okay because I'm glad I got to now. I'm just thankful that I did get to where the overwhelming majority of people will never know how great we have it right now. And I have to realize now that that's going to end soon and never come back." Now, that didn't make it any easier, especially getting out and going to work as a civilian contractor. Somebody described it to me really, really well, which was getting out of the military and working as a contractor is like going to every practice and then not playing in the game. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. Because no matter what, you're still not in the military anymore. So when the guys go to do that next thing that you're not a part of, which is the most important thing, by the way, you stay behind. And that's hard too. And so you have to start early. My message out there to people listening is you have to start, not even in the military, maybe it's your sports team, maybe you're in high school. I know we have some, young people who listen to the show. Maybe you're in high school and you're an athlete and you realize that you're going to leave the basketball team or the football team, you know, or swim team, and you're not going to be a part of that team anymore. And all those people are going to go their separate ways. And it's really hard. I don't know. I don't have the answer as to how to deal with it, but I do know you have to accept it, and you should, and in my mind, you should be grateful for the experiences you did get to have. And I say this thing on the show, which is, you can't let the military be the last great thing you ever do. So in your mind, right? In your mind, you have to go, the military is not going to be the last great thing I ever do. It's going to be part of the next great thing I do. A big part of it, you know? You have to take everything that you are and that you learn because of the military and make it a big part of the next great thing you do. Not thinking that the last good days of your life are over, but the fact is your military time is over. And it's time to look at what the next great part of your life is going to be, not mourn the loss of the life that you just left. You know, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Max, you and I were lucky because we had the ability to go through the Honor Foundation, you know, and Keith, I mean, he's just extremely self-aware, as demonstrated, you know, our conversation here. You know, he had this self-awareness to realize these things about himself. And, you know, that's why I wanted Keith to be in this conversation with us. But
not for my good looks.
That too.
It helps.
But unfortunately, a lot of veterans out there don't have those kinds of resources, you know. So I've been thinking about, like, what other avenues do other veterans have? And in two that I know right off the top of my head are Team Red, White, and Blue, which, you know, is just basically gets veterans together and involves them in different fitness activities, whether it's going on a hike or bike ride or, you know, or something along those lines. And then Team Rubicon, which a lot of they help during disasters. And a lot of veterans, you know, you bring skills that you don't even know that are valuable, you know, out there in you know, instances like that where people need to know how to do TCCC or give medical care, or just have the ability to plan logistics and get supplies to people. So, you know, off the top of my head, just connecting with other veterans and, you know, finding that tribe again through organizations like that, I think that's one way.
Keith, are you a part of any organizations like that?
No, I'm kind of gonna come at it a different way. So
great.
When I got out of the military, I kind of tried to leave all of the military behind, kind of what you were talking about. I didn't want to be that veteran that clung to their past so hard, and everything they did was, I'm a veteran. They got the bumper stickers, they got the guns, they got the dip. You know, the veteran. You know what I'm talking about. You see those guys that they just can't leave it. Everything they talk about is veterans. They can't talk about anything besides guns and deployments and boot camp stories. So I tried to do everything I could for people not to really even know I was in the military. I wanted to almost blend in and see, all right, what's this really like without being a veteran in this type of society? So I really did everything on my own, to be honest, especially when I started school right away. I really didn't, when everyone's like, tell us about yourself, I never really said I was in the military. I just kind of wanted to be in that new environment and not look back. A lot of times in my life, always looking back has hindered me, and I'm really trying not to do that anymore. So I never really joined any type of foundations. I never really went to any VFWs. I never went to any meetups. I never really did anything except keep in touch with the friends that were also veterans. So I didn't get to experience any of that. I probably now wish I did, because it would have helped me so much within, like, you know, finding those new tribes and finding new like jobs and careers and stuff that I could have done. But I didn't really want to in the past. And I think it helped me and hindered me in many ways, but I'm glad I did it because it kind of got me to look as a civilian, as a new person, saying, okay, I'm all by myself now. How do I make this work without relying on my past? And then I'm kind of transitioning into, where do you find these new tribes? For me, it's been CrossFit gyms. It's been Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms. It's been doing races and meeting other veterans. Find activities and hobbies that are the type of environment that attract other veterans. The first day I signed up for jiu-jitsu, I met like six or seven other veterans just there, right there. Guys that are cops, guys that are Army Rangers, guys that were in special forces. They're like, oh yeah, I did that. Awesome. Nice to meet another veteran. Because those types of environments attract other veterans. So if you're all alone and you're looking for those type of environments of like-minded people, which is extremely important, find those type of environments where people are constantly trying to become better and faster and productive and stronger and things that are still positive. And you're going to find, even if they're not veterans, you're going to find those people that bring you further, which is really powerful. And I think that's what the Honor Foundation is doing. And these other foundations is they're getting these high quality, productive people and putting them back in the same place. So those veterans that are transitioning don't feel so alone. And if you don't have access to that, because sometimes those types of foundations, and they really are selective about who they let in due to like kind of what you did in the military. If you don't have access to those different types of foundations or clubs, go somewhere like a jiu-jitsu gym. I would highly, highly recommend any guy that's struggling with self-confidence or any type of alone feeling or any type of like anxiety, go to a CrossFit gym, go to a jiu-jitsu gym and just train really hard and get in those environments with guys that are really just chasing after it.
It's really true that some of the most relatable civilians I've ever met were in gyms, like specifically in CrossFit gyms. Like
Absolutely.
you meet somebody like, oh, you must have been in the military or whatever. Like, no, I'm an accountant. Like,
yeah.
Oh, well, you got the personality. You could have been in the Marines or something like that, And by the way, going to college when you're in your late 20s with a beard is the most military thing you can do. By the way,
yeah,
you don't have to.
In plain sight.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to say it in your introduction. They're like, who?
Yeah. I tried my hardest.
I'm still waiting until I'm a little older to go back to the university and hit the quad on the campus and go have a good time. But I got my GI Bill waiting for me patiently. I'm someone who I knew I needed that part of my life. Like every good thing in my life is thanks to the Navy. Like my life was nothing before the Navy. I had nothing and I was going nowhere and it wasn't even on my radar to do. I just, because of a friend, I ended up looking to join the military. I ended up in the Navy. And from that point forward, everything in my life just got better. And I found it and I don't have any family in the world. I don't know any of my family. And so the Navy was always represented. The whole extent of the people that I consider family was in the military. And until now, when I have my wife and we live out here in Japan, and we have a dog, and that's great. And I love that. But when I started to leave the Navy, I was like, man, I had those dark times where I was like, I don't have anybody now. All my friends are either still in the military doing their thing, or they're, married with kids and they've kind of like gone their separate ways, which is great. And I was kind of like last man standing, so to speak, like out there feeling really solo. And luckily, even though I had moments of despair and fear and questioning, I always, from the time I got out of the Navy, had this show that I've been doing, which helped tremendously so much for me to realize how many people are going through the same stuff. And you guys echo it as well, which is great to know that there's a way to work through it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a life waiting for you on the other side of it, which is fantastic. But I'm I don't, even though I don't go around making my whole life, my whole identity, the Navy, I still need, I have a whole nother life that I'm living now. I still need that connection, that reach back, and that community, that solidarity of the community, which is something I get a lot out of this show, which I love. And I'm glad that you have found it now too, Keith, through CrossFit and through jiu-jitsu, which are two great avenues. And I totally think people should go do that. And Jason, you also you're like a super athlete as well. Like Keith, Keith, I can tell, even though I don't know you, I can tell you're an athlete because you coach CrossFit and you do jiu-jitsu and you're military, which gives me like a 10% idea that you're an athlete just hearing somebody who's in the military, because that could go either way. But obviously you are. Jason, you're like a super athlete. You do adventure races and triathlons, and you did like this Hudson River swim. What are you into now? Like, what is the community of like fitness that you're into? Is there anything you're raising money for or awareness for through that, or anything you want to tell people about?
So the Hudson River swim was part of the GI Go Fund, and it's a veteran charity that helps homeless veterans in the New York, New Jersey tri-state area. And then they were also helping veterans who had been affected by COVID. A friend of mine who separated from the Navy was a SEAL. I saw that he did it last year, and it looked like an amazing event. And not only just to raise money, but also just to pay tribute to all the police and fire department, harbor patrol that safeguard that city since 9/11. So I was luckily to be fortunate enough to be part of that event, and that was a really hard swim, and a lot of people that were from New York thought I was pretty insane for even going in the Hudson River. But it was in terms of fitness and what I'm trying to do now, it's all about just quality of life and longevity for me. I'm 46, but I still feel like 10 years younger, and I think a lot of that is just because of what I did when I was younger, and how I trained and devised my life. It was always to get to this point, with the highest quality of health and fitness as possible. So there are no big challenges on my horizon anymore. I don't do Ironmans, but I still coach other people who want to fulfill that challenge and that dream. For me, it is just continuing to find new challenges that I haven't done yet, and to pursue those and to bring others with me. If there's any way that I can pass on things that I've learned in my experience to how I've been able to maintain this quality of life and health and fitness, I want to help other people do that.
I think that's what a lot of people need, probably myself included. So that's good that you're doing that. Keith, what you kind of mentioned before we got started here that you're doing some stuff in finance now?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. In my early 20s, when I was still in the military, I started just investing. It's just kind of like out of the blue. I heard it was a good thing to do. I had the TSP, started investing, messing around. I knew absolutely nothing. And then just slowly over the years, continuously doing it and just realizing that it's something that, and I don't really like tell a lot of people about this because it's kind of my own thing. And any type of investing, when you tell other people that you know it, you almost get to the point where they're like, what do I buy? What stocks? Blah, blah, blah. And I just don't want to get into that. So it's something that's been a very like personal journey. And it's something that I don't know why, but I fell in love with it. I started just consuming everything I possibly could. I feel like Warren Buffett is my spirit animal. I listened to his annual meetings with Charlie Munger, and I got into the whole Charlie Munger mental models and reading about Benjamin Franklin and just this whole idea of long-term, slow growth of wealth. And it's the same way that I look at everything in my life. Is like, you start something new, you have to be okay with sucking at it, and you just need to slowly keep doing it for a long time. And then eventually you're gonna have something great. Same thing, I taught myself piano, guitar, I started ultra running just completely out of the blue. Everything I've started, I just am okay with sucking at. And that's kind of how investing started. And now it's 10 years later, and I've built myself a really good portfolio, and I've learned along the way. And it's gotten to the point now where I see the fruits of my labor. And now I look at the way of building wealth entirely different. It's to the point now where I see it differently, and I look at every single dollar as like, and you'll hear this on like YouTube channels of like, a single dollar is part of your army. It's a soldier. You need to put that dollar to work to make more dollars. And if you understand the mechanisms behind investing, it's not that confusing. There's a lot of ways to do it in a way that it's speculation and it's gambling. But if you look at it in a different way, there's a lot of ways that you're almost guaranteed over the long run to be successful and to make money. Every company I buy, or index fund or ETF, and I don't know if I'm talking over people's heads here, but maybe some people understand what I'm talking about. Everything that you buy, you should look to hold for 20 to 30 years. If you're doing it in that way, you're going to build amazing wealth, and compound interest is going to take over, and it's going to build you something. So all of your work that you've been doing and all this energy that you're putting out isn't just, I spend all this energy, I make $100 and then it's gone. It's you spend this initial energy, and then that $100 builds more wealth, and it slowly compounds on each other. And in not getting into too deep into all this investing and technical stuff, it's the same way to look at anything productive in your life. You have to suck at first and build it slow, and then eventually those skills start to compound on each other, and it becomes something amazing. And fitness is one thing as well, and nutrition is one thing as well. You start at a certain level, and you slowly let it build. You slowly pay attention. You keep the data, and you adjust slightly, and you continuously getting better. So to kind of backtrack, investing is something that I really want to get into, just for the rest of my life in general, because I genuinely like it. I think I'm good at two things in my life, literally. I'm good at getting in shape and staying in shape and helping other people, and I'm good at investing. I'm good at understanding how to do it intelligently for the long term. So for me, I'm very like scatterbrained. I have to pick one or two things and just kind of go all in. So my next endeavor, I'm going to get more into real estate investing. I just got my real estate license, which I'm really proud of because I did it while I'm in school full time, while I'm coaching, while I'm doing everything else. So the next stage of my life, I'm really going to just go all in. I'm starting real estate investing. I'm getting multifamily properties. I'm going to be a landlord for a while. Maybe eventually, if it gets big enough, I'll rent a property management, do it for myself, make some mistakes, suck in the beginning. And I'm totally okay with that. If I make a drastic mistake in the beginning, I've done enough stuff now, and I failed enough that I say it's going to be okay. Just what Jason said before. It's a learning process. So for me, that's my path forward. I'm going to always continue with the fitness stuff, and I love it. And I'll always have clients, and I'll always help people train. But I think for my next decade, if I had to guess, would be purely focusing on my investing, my real estate investing, my real estate buying and selling and helping other people do it, and then having fitness and clients on the side, and trying to do my best to not focus on too much and just focus on getting as good as possible at those things.
So Max, one thing that I've always loved and appreciated about Keith is whatever this guy sets his mind to, he's going to achieve. He's going to do it. And so Keith and I were actually talking about putting together a little Zoom master's class, because I feel like, this guy's going to crush it. Like he's starting, he's just getting his start. But he's got a lot of information to share with the rest of us. And, I know that he's going to be successful in this endeavor. So
thanks, brother. Right back at you.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I asked you that too, because it's relevant on so many levels, the financial stuff, because for one, I don't think it's a stretch to say it is critical to have some high level of financial intelligence before you get out of the military. I think a lot of what we see people fail at when they get out of the military the root of it is financial. And a lot of the most successful people I've ever known in the military were always talking about money. They're always talking about smartly managing their money, making sure the finances were in order, paying their bills on time, stuff like that. And everyone who always had the most problems had financial problems as well. Like the people with the biggest problems in the military that I ever knew, whether they seemed like they were related or not to finances, had financial problems as well. It just totally ties into your life. And not only that is what I would say to people thinking about getting out of the military is have educated yourself in finance to some extent, but also the part about having that next great part of your life and being excited about it. I can tell you were so excited about talking about that. And we had talked about it a little bit before we got in the show, and we'll have to do another episode where we talk about finances and getting into finance and getting a real estate license and all that. But we've been going for an hour, almost an hour and 20 minutes. And I normally like to start thinking about, how we're going to close the show. And it seems to me, and if there's anything we haven't gotten to, you guys really want to get to, we'll talk about it for sure. I have plenty of time. But it seems like there's one theme of this whole conversation, which has been fantastic, that we keep coming back to, and is kind of like what we had talked about when we were planning on doing this show, which is failure. And whenever I've had a big failure in my life, I've always said, how am I going to make this the best thing that's ever happened to me? Like immediately, you have to, in my mind, I'm like, I have to make this the best thing that's ever happened to me. And the only reason, and I'm lying to myself when I say it, but the only reason I say it is because having survived so many failures, just speaking for myself, having survived so many failures, I think I've learned one thing, which is it will be okay eventually. You rebound, you rebuild, it'll be okay eventually, no matter how bad it seems in the moment. And it can seem really bad at times. What is it about failure that you guys have learned the most from and would want to pass on to somebody listening to the show?
I would just have to say that it's failure is not permanent. It's just a change in your trajectory. And just like you said, Max, in the moment, it can be so devastating and so fleeting that you think about drastic things, dark things, but the thing is like I said before, is you need to fail forward. So we need to learn from that failure. What are the lessons? What are the lessons you can take moving forward? And honestly, that is the most important thing. When I joined the Navy, I decided to enlist and not become an officer because I was already fighting an age waiver, and I just wanted to get in and go to buds. It didn't matter, what rank I was, and I was leaving a good career behind, and going to get paid, E2, E3 pay in the military, which is not a lot, to try to do this with no safety net, all your eggs in one basket, no safety net. You make it, great. You don't make it, who knows what happens. And just like you said, I learned so much from that. I've learned that everything is going to be okay. That you're going to get up the next day and you can fall flat on your face, pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, learn from your mistakes, learn from that failure, and move forward. Channel that energy into a different direction.
Yeah, to kind of to reiterate what you were saying, Max, about like it's all going to be okay, and Jason said that as well. I think anytime you fail, there's always that opportunity to look at why you failed. And I always like, that whole cliche thing, like extreme ownership and taking ownership of everything. And I think that it's a great thing to always have, especially during times of failure, right? If you fail at something, you can take a look and say, why did I fail? And then if you're really honest with yourself, just like we were saying, and you understand how to tell yourself the truth, that failure could potentially multiply your skills in the future. If you failed because you were lazy and you didn't study enough, right? Okay, cool. Next time I got to study more. If you failed because of something out of your control, it's out of your control. You failed. No big deal. It's not in your control. Don't worry about it. If you failed because of some reason why you're just not good enough, right? You say like, oh, I failed at my math test because I'm not good at math. I think that's an easy way out. Study more math, get good. So you got to look at failure, and it's not always bad. A lot of the times it's really good. You failed because of something that's easily fixable, so you don't fail in the future at something even bigger. Don't be afraid to fail at small things along the way, so you can look at that failure, build, and then fail again. Build, fail again. And then eventually you're going to get to a point where you've failed at so many things and you've consistently built yourself up and tried to create a better version of yourself for the future, that you're going to get to the point where you're not really worried too much about failure anymore, because you know every time I fail, I get better. Every single time I fail, I get better. So that's how I look at things now. If I'm starting something new, I know for a fact I'm going to fail, but I don't really look at it as like, I don't have failure as a negative connotation anymore. It's more of, I'm going to learn. I'm going to fail, but I'm also going to be really, really introspective and pay very close attention to why I failed and do my best to not have it happen again. And guaranteed it will happen again, and that's okay. And then you keep moving forward. So it's all going to be okay in the end. Be okay with failure. I always tell my athletes, it's okay to suck, especially in CrossFit, like something that's really hard. Like, you guys are going to suck in the beginning. Accept it, all high five and say, we all suck. And every day we're going to get just a little bit better. And I promise you, if you look at things in longer terms, if you look at something, a skill that you're trying to master in 5-year terms versus every single day, you're going to be a much better person, and you're going to think better, you're going to fail better, and you're going to be more productive.
Yeah. You know, that's exactly right. CrossFit's a great example where success is just the culmination of a lot of failure, you know? Like, yeah. That's all any success really is, especially when you talk to veterans, like people in the military, especially SEALs, come on a show and they're like, well, you're constantly failing at everything, you know, but it's not about not failing. It's dealing with it, you know? And something that I've always hated the expression, failure is not an option, especially in warfighting terms. Like, yeah, right. The expression failure is not an option makes zero sense. Of course, failure is an option, especially when other people are involved and their goal is also to not fail. And when it's life and death, you know, of course you have to get out of this mindset that failure is not an option. Failure is not only an option, it is inevitable. And a lot of times it's part of the process. So stop saying failure is not an option. Whenever somebody says failure is not an option, I assume that person is probably going to fail or is used to failing, you know? Failure is not an option is something people who know that they're likely to fail tell themselves to make themselves believe that they can do it. Whereas someone who has done a lot of things realizes that you're going to fail. You're constantly going to fail. You fail, you pivot, you move on, course correct, and get on to like where the path that success eventually, it's like a rat in a maze, right? Fail, 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 cheese, you know? And and that's just how life is that's how everything in life is. You're just constantly failing until you succeed. And failure is the greatest lesson. But the problem is we've been talking about that is when we don't express that honestly and everyone just acts like they're not failing, if you're not cued into that, if you're not, you know, privy to that information and then you fail, you're like, I'm a fucking failure. Exactly. I'm a piece of crap, which is totally wrong. Like, could not be more untrue as far as the reality of what everyone's experiencing goes. Everyone's just experiencing failure after failure after failure after failure until you eventually succeed, and then you're just failing towards your next success, you know? Failing towards success, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Love it.
And yeah, so if anybody's going through that right now, you should expect it. You should just start expecting it now. It's a part of the process. And you guys started learning it early in your Navy career, in a pretty challenging way, one of the toughest ways that you possibly could, which is failing to graduate buds, which is just an extremely difficult thing to go through. And I'm proud of you guys for getting to where you are now, including completing honorable military service, which is like not as easy as it sounds. If you've been in the military, you've seen it's easy to get that derailed. So I think anybody who served honorably, got out, has moved on, is living their lives, that's a huge accomplishment too. Everyone should be really proud of. And then sharing your stories is extremely powerful as well. And I want to thank you guys for being willing to come on here and share those stories, because they will help people. I can guarantee it.
Thank you so much for having us on, Max. There's a phrase that I use every day to just tell myself, am I working towards my goals? And, I ask myself at the end of the day, what did I do to make the needle move today? And it's just kind of how I continue to adapt myself and pivot to my goals, to continuously find that trajectory. But I just also want to say to any veterans out there, or anybody who's hurting, who needs somebody to talk to, please reach out. I think all three of us would be willing to talk to you and listen. As well, if you want to talk nutrition and fitness, I'm here as well. So
in this, if you guys want or are willing to give me a place people can find you, and I'll post it in the description of this video and the clips and the podcast, if that's something you guys would be interested in. And otherwise, sure. I won't give out your guys' last names or anything like that. Or I guess, Jason, yours is on your Zoom call. But yeah, Keith, is there anything we didn't get to that you want to get to, or anything you want to say?
I think a good way to end it is just to take everything that we talked about today and just use it as momentum for this veteran community. Like, everyone has this view of the veteran community that everyone is damaged and everyone is going through PTSD and everyone is going through some battles, and that may be true, but we're also some of the smartest, most powerful, most athletic, most quick thinking people I've ever met in my entire life. And we need to start bringing the idea of veterans away from the damaged sector and into the prosperous sector. We need to all get together and say, we're not going to be viewed anymore in this damaging light. We need to band together and bring everyone up around us. We're all hurting in our own ways. We're all going through stuff, but we started serving. And I liked how Jason kind of said, like, once you serve, like, you're serving forever, and you need to find different ways to serve. You still have that same passion of serving. So start volunteering in your community, start doing things. You don't have to get out with this grand thing and be a game changer and be the next Mark Zuckerberg and all this stuff. Start small, start serving your community, start bringing your friends up around you, start with the small stuff. And if we all continue to do that with the people that are close to us, we're going to start changing the way that people view veterans. And we're going to start, building ourselves up into people that are leaders and start leading the country and CEOs. And I know we're already doing it, and especially things with like the Honor Foundation and all these elite meet I saw on Instagram, like bringing all these different guys together and putting them into these powerful positions. It doesn't just have to be done that way. We can help our own veterans out. We can talk to them about finances. We can talk to them about fitness and nutrition. And hey, bro, like, I haven't talked to you in a year. Like, how you doing? How's your mental health? Is there any way I can help you? What's going on in your personal life? How's your wife? How's your kids? How's your girlfriend? Reach out to your friends. Bring them up with you. If you're doing something and you figure something out and you're really good at it, like for you, Max, right? Invite your friends onto this podcast, right? Jason, like, if you know really well how to get people in great shape and you see a friend that's struggling, just reach out, help them out, send them a program, send them a diet. Be like, hey, bro, I'm really figuring this stuff out. I'm good at it. Here, just take this. Let's all start bringing each other up, and let's crush the next 40 years. Instead of looking at this as we have a suicide pandemic. I understand and I get it, but I don't want that to be the main way that people look at veterans. I want us to be people that are crushing life and bringing everyone else up around us and becoming this thing that people are proud to be veterans and proud to serve and continue serving and continue getting out and transitioning. That's my speech for the day.
Hell yeah.
Love that, Keith.
I love that. I love that. Okay, guys. Hey, I want to thank you for joining me here today. It means a lot to me, and it really does. It means a lot to me. Jason, thanks for setting this whole thing up. I really appreciate it a lot. It's great to see your face and chat with you. And to all my brothers that I served with in the Navy, my brothers and sisters as well. You can, reach out to me anytime if you got something you want to come on the show and say. Let me know what it is, and I'd love to share the messages like Keith was saying. I would love to have more people on the show in this format. I like doing a live show, and you can find this on the podcast and the clips here on YouTube as well. If you guys want to stand by for 1 minute, I'm going to sign out, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Cool?
Cool. Sounds good, brother.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for watching that very, very special episode of the ScuttleButt Show with my friend Jason and my new friend Keith. I hope you got something out of it. As always, you can reach out to me here on the program. If you want to chat, you can email me at thescuttlebuttshow@gmail.com. I hope you got something out of that. Show some love for Jason and Keith, and let us know what you thought was the most valuable or helpful information from that conversation, which was, in my opinion, and I hope yours, spectacular and meaningful. And with that, I look forward to talking to you all really soon. I am out for now.